A century ago, around the same time Rotary was starting to grow into the global institution it is today, polio was one of the most feared diseases in the world. Today, we're close to ending it for good. The tough fact is, as long as polio exists anywhere, it's a threat to spread back everywhere. The world owes a debt of gratitude to the Rotarians, healthcare workers, and volunteers who've knocked on doors, set up clinics, and traveled across countries to make sure children are protected from this awful disease. We should all be incredibly proud of how far we've come. When polio is eradicated, and I do mean when, not if, it will be one of the biggest advances in public health in human history.
And welcome to our monthly Foundation Matters webinar. I'm Sandra Hempstead. I'm the chair of the Regional Foundation Action Plan for Zones 33 and 34, and I'll be hosting the webinar this evening. My colleague and Polio Now coordinator, Jeff Michaelman, will moderate the Q&A segment of our webinar. The monthly Foundation Matters webinars are developed specifically for club leaders like you. Tonight's webinar is all about PolioPlus, and it's chock full of strategies and ideas to bring awareness and support of Rotary's efforts to rid the world of polio. In addition to our regional team, we have two special guests with us this evening. Please join me in welcoming past international president and longtime polio champion, John Germ. John is a member of the Rotary Club of Chattanooga, Tennessee. He served as chairman of the Rotary Foundation's Board of Trustees and the Rotary International PolioPlus Committee. John has been recognized for his fundraising accomplishments. There are many, including his role in securing the $450 million polio eradication pledge from Bill Gates in 2017. John is such an inspiring speaker, and we're fortunate that he will provide our closing comments tonight. Now, we also have Tom Gump joining us this evening. Tom is a past governor of Rotary District 5950 in Minnesota. Tom served as aide to the 24-25 Rotary International President, Stephanie Urchik, and he's a director nominee for the Rotary International Board of Directors. You'll be hearing from Tom about the impactful ways that clubs can support PolioPlus. Now, getting us started this evening is End Polio Now coordinator, Nancy Barbie. And I can't wait for you to learn about her exciting Journey to Zero, the Rotary Torch Tour. So Nancy, let us know about your travels.
Thank you so much, Sandra. What a journey we had too. This all began really in 2014 when India was certified polio-free by the World Health Organization, and the world celebrated. What a milestone they reached. The Rotary Club of Madras made the decision to celebrate with an Olympic-style torch to commemorate this important event. Suzanne Ray, a polio survivor from Australia, was in India at that time promoting her fundraising effort for polio, the world's greatest meal. And Suzanne asked them if she could carry that torch and that flame around the world as a beacon of hope. And they said, of course you can. And she did. And at the end of the year, 2015, she delivered it to then President Gary Wang in Brazil at the Rotary International Convention. My colleague and fellow In Polio Now coordinator, Colleen Bonadonna for Zone 33, and I decided we would use this idea to recreate the excitement and awareness surrounding our #1 Rotary Foundation project, polio eradication. The Rotary Torch creates visual moments, which is very important, that capture the attention and educate all communities. Our goal was education, advocacy, and awareness. Everywhere we went, non-Rotarians gave us opportunity to explain our mission and bring awareness to polio. So many were either Rotarians, non-Rotarians or new Rotarians in their family, or knew someone that had polio. We knew that a high visibility presence makes the difference. So we decided to drive across the United States en route to Calgary and the International Convention. And thanks to aid to the president, Tom Gump, we were able to hand over that torch to President Stephanie in Calgary. We hoped our torch tour would impact communities and Rotarians, and it sure did impact us. Let me take you on a little journey of some of the states that we traveled through. Colleen and I traveled 15 states, over 3,000 miles, hundreds of Rotarians, and many Rotary events, beautiful scenery, United States landmarks, all while driving in a red In Polio Now car. We had to plan, and we started planning while we were on a trip, on a National Immunization Day trip in India. Our first stop was St. Louis at the gateway to the West Arch. District Governor Jerry Nolan welcomed us there, and I filmed him to explain what we were doing there and why we were there. And while filming, Colleen spoke to a group of teens visiting the Arch for the first time and told them about Rotary. They had no idea what Rotary was, and they had no idea that polio was still alive and well, but they do now. Then on to Evanston, the Rotary headquarters. What a fun trip that was. Claire Monroe, our polio staff member, director, rolled out the red carpet for us, and the torch was greeted kindly throughout that tour. The torch took a tour through the Rotary International headquarters too. So the torch was very excited about seeing all of the different spots that we had seen before, and meeting Paul Harris. Can you believe that? Our goal was visual storytelling, creating community awareness with celebrations, and of course, media coverage. There was a young man that was on a Zoom call, and he said, "Why aren't you stopping through Wisconsin?" So we said, "Okay, we will." And we stopped in District 6250 and were greeted by a polio chair that was outstanding. He arranged 2 stops for us, and at both stops, we were the media showed up, and we were interviewed, and we were told that our message went viral. Now, that may have been in Wisconsin only, but they told us that it went viral. Then on to Minneapolis, where our good friend Tom Gump, met us and took us to a wonderful place called the Mall of America. But before we went to the Mall of America, we were able to go to a concert that Tom and his wife spearheaded, and it was sponsored by the Rotary Club of Edina. The torch was in full view, and the focus was on the torch with lots of pictures taken. What a fun event it was. And then the next day we met more Rotarians at the Mall of America. If you've never been to the Mall of America, it is a treat, and it is something not to be missed. On to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I had no idea that there were so many Rotarians in Sioux Falls that would take us to the Arc of Dreams. The Arc of Dreams spans the Big Sioux River, designed by Dale Lamphere. There is a 15-foot gap in the middle, representing the leap of faith dreamers take to see their dreams come true. which I thought was very fitting for us to be at the Arch of Dreams, because our dream is to imagine a world without polio. We took a little side trip to Sioux City. The torch needed a rest. So the torch takes the rest at the Hard Rock Cafe and Resort. We didn't do any gambling, but we rested a lot, and the torch took a little snooze along the way. We had a little hiccup because we thought Sioux Falls and Sioux City were the same place. Well, they are not, but we were able to hit both places and we're very excited. Then on to Ocala, Nebraska, a fun stop and a Western show performed by high school students. I did not know, but in years past, Ocala was where cowboys drove their cattle to be loaded on trains en route to auction in larger cities like Chicago and New York. You know, not only did we learn a lot about Rotarians, we also learned a lot of history of our country and saw some beautiful, beautiful scenery. So it was great. After Ocala and a great time there. And we did see some gunfires going on there. So it was cowboys and Indians showed up. It was nice. We had a great time. Then we were featured keynote speakers at the district conference, and donations poured in for polio in Loveland, Colorado. We even met director Naomi from Taiwan, and she handed me $1,000 in cash right on the spot. What a great event. But I think the most impactful part was when 300 attendees lined the street outside as we symbolically and physically passed the Rotary torch from person to person. We were so thrilled to see our fellow In Polio Now coordinator, Dr. Marnie Uberg, and a lot of Rotaractors there as well. And the little guy in the middle down there is past director Greg Todd. He told us to tell Robert Hall that he was taking the torch. Well, we didn't let that happen. The torch continued with us. On my bucket list, to visit friends in Salt Lake City, but also see the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. It was fantastic. The torch visited the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and a lot of people ask us, what in the world is that? So again, awareness, and seeing where we have come and where we are headed and what we're going to continue to do until we are through with this dreaded disease. We were met by many Rotarians at a fundraising event at a zoo. The mayor of Boise greeted us, as did so many people, and again, asking about the torch and about polio. Lots and lots of pictures to be taken. So the torch has spread across the United States as we did, and many, many pictures now are on district websites and club websites. So we are very excited to know about that. Well, it was time to slow down in Seattle. We rested up for Calgary, but guess what? We had to visit Pike Street and the fish market. And then you have to have a crab feast, and we did. And you can see before we started and then after we filled up, and it was wonderful. But of course, again, spreading awareness, spreading advocacy, and spreading education about polio and polio eradication and Rotary. It was an honor to lead the parade at the opening of the House of Friendship in Calgary, Canada, at our international convention. So many people followed along behind as we traveled throughout that House of Friendship, walking, talking, waving, chanting, "In polio now, in polio now," and then an honor to hand the torch over to President Stephanie. That was another highlight of the convention, was of course Bill Gates, that you heard before, donating money and being our partner once again for 2 more years, that you'll hear about that again in just a few minutes. Now, why do we fundraise? Oh, wait a minute. You got to go see about these people. There's a lot of people in this picture that took pictures with the Rotary torch. And of course, we had past presidents, Jennifer, that came and knew all about the torch and was so happy to raise that torch. You'll see some of the people that walked behind us as well in this picture. And of course, Bill Gates and that announcement that I will let past President John Durham tell you more about. So how can you help? The End Polio Now torch continues its journey as a powerful fundraising tool and awareness symbol. It is featured prominently in club and community events. We call it the Torch of Hope. Folks, 60 cents vaccinates one child for life against polio. If you multiply that by the Gates Foundation match, then it triples every single donation. Together, we can end polio now. We can make sure that we are on target by joining the movement. Your clubs can participate in the torch events. And if you don't have the torch with you, that's okay. You can do any kind of event that will put you out front and put you in the community to create that awareness and to educate people about Rotary and about End Polio Now. Light the way, share your stories, make history, make sure that you donate. And one way to do that, we use the Raise for Rotary platform. And to date, because of this Rotary Torch Tour, we've raised $604,586 on our goal to 1 million. Join us. You can join us on the Raise for Rotary platform. Form your own team. Get the credit, but join our Rotary $1 million challenge. Folks, thank you so much. And now let me turn you over to my good friend and fellow polio champion, Tom Gump.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much. Those pictures and your story and all the work that you do is just inspiring. It's an honor to be on this panel with all you polio warriors. I'm just honored to be here. And thank you, Zones 33 and 34, for allowing me to share a little bit about what clubs can do in our polio eradication efforts. So this is a picture of actually a transit station in Pakistan. And those are frontline workers that we're going to be talking about later, along with Fez and Aziz and President Stephanie. So there's three major things that a club can do to help with the polio eradication effort. And that's fundraising, like Nancy just was talking about, advocacy, and raising awareness. So when it comes to fundraising, we have an annual goal in Rotary, in the Rotary Foundation, to raise $50 million, which of course is matched 2-to-1 by the Gates Foundation. So of course we welcome individuals to give, but we also ask each club to give $1,500 towards that. The district governors here on the call, you could actually encourage the clubs when you go there and ask them how they do it. We do it in two different ways at my club. We sell poinsettias during the holiday season, and then we sell flowers during Mother's Day, and we raise about $5,000 every year. That all helps. The other thing we try to do is we talk about each of the districts giving 20% of their district designated funds to this effort, which is matched by the World Fund by 50% and then matched again by the Gates Foundation. And we usually try to get at International Assembly, get the incoming governors to commit to that right away before the funds get used for other reasons. Now, of course, this year's a little bit different because we have a funding gap. There's certain communities and certain countries that are putting more dollars towards defense and things like that. But, you know, there is good news because we have other countries who are giving more, such as Saudi Arabia, who's committed 500 million, 100 million a year, every year over the next 5 years. But it's just something to keep in mind when you're fundraising, to let everyone know it's really important and it's more important than ever. And even though we're this close, we're 99.99% there, you know, the last miles are hard because of where we need to do what we need to do. That border region between Pakistan and Afghanistan is a hard country. And you might see in some of the videos that the Gates Foundation puts out regarding steps that have to be climbed, a ladder of 1,000 steps, and mountainous country. And of course, there's armed conflict going on in those areas. And even though the countries that are at war, they provide security, it's still a dangerous task and expensive task to do. So I love this example of what Nancy and Colleen and her team did to raise that 604,000, going to $1 million soon. It was inspirational to hear about that. So thank you so much, Nancy, for all you do, and not just now, but all the National Immunization Days that you go to, and just everything you do to eradicate polio. Now, the one thing that we really need to think about are PolioPlus societies. When I talk to Rotary International staff, I ask the question, does it really make a difference when you have a PolioPlus society? And it does. And in our zones, I know that I've studied the districts that have a PolioPlus society and the districts that don't. And it turns out that there's more regular giving, and there's just an opportunity to remind people when you are part of a PolioPlus society. And some people think, oh, our district already gives enough, and we don't need that because we're already generous givers. But the reality is, when you form a PolioPlus society, it does help. So the next thing we have to talk about is advocacy. This is on a transit station. This particular transit station, the buses come into Pakistan, and the military gets on the bus to actually look for contraband and things like that. But then it allows the frontline workers that we saw on the front page to come in and actually give those precious drops to the children on the bus. And I'll tell you, they serve 3,500 children a day at this one transit stop, and that's every day, 365 days of the year. So it's just amazing what our frontline workers are doing in the areas where it's most needed. Now, what clubs need to do is advocacy. I have a few advocacy pictures here. This was with President Stephanie last year, meeting with President Bong Bong from the Philippines. And it was wonderful to hear his story about how his mother in the 80s would go with the local Rotary Club to administer those drops. So our leaders, like John Germ here on the screen, and our current leaders, Francesco, our IPPC, International Polio Plus Chair, Mike McGovern, they're all in Pakistan now doing these same trips. This is when we met with the Prime Minister. But it's not always on the international level, and it's not what our Rotary leaders are doing that's the only thing that's important. This is a local province. And the only reason I show this picture is because it's the picture that I look the most funniest of all the pictures I've ever seen. I won't tell you what Stephanie says that hat looks like on me. But anyway, I bring this up because all of you as club members, it's not just about what's going on with governors' estates and things like that. It's what's going on in your own local community. You know, the best thing we can do, whether it be disaster response or anything else, is to talk to the people who are in your club, the mayors, the city council members. We could do advocacy at all levels, and we need to do it at all levels. So that's one of the major things you can do as a club. So the other thing that we need to talk about is raising awareness and doing things like Nancy did with the torch, but anything you do. I mean, we, even during COVID, we had a virtual scavenger hunt where we sent people out in our district. We had a command center in my office. And then we had different things that were related to polio. Like we had go to the store and buy some eye drops, and whoever got through the scavenger hunt the first, won a prize. But there's all kinds of things you can do. We've all heard of them, the pints for polio and the pins for polio and all those things. But we need to do something. And this is the time of the year, the best time of the year to do that, because we have World Polio Day coming up. And you could have all kinds of experts come speak to your club. You can get banners made. We had a giant T-shirt made and had drones fly over. There's all kinds of things that you can do on a club level. And don't let this World Immunization Week and the World Polio Day go by without scheduling something at your club. You can have letters written to your newspaper, and things like that. One thing that was fun that we used to raise awareness last year is President Stephanie, with the help of the Rotary Foundation staff, had a strike out polio baseball game. Now, the reason I put this under, we did raise over $2 million together during this event, but I put it under this getting the awareness out because, we did have a suite where people paid money to sit in the suite, but the local Pittsburgh Rotary clubs had 400 people who weren't in the box but sat in the general seats, and they were selling koozies and they were selling T-shirts and all this stuff. So it's amazing how just one little event can get the awareness out. So we should try to do that at our clubs. So just in summary, because I know that we're in a tight time schedule, we want to ensure that we do that fundraising. We want to ensure that we get the $50 million through personal contributions, our PolioPlus societies, our clubs giving the 1,500 or more, and of course, all the other things that we talked about. And then we want to make sure that we create those PolioPlus societies. We want to advocate for polio whenever we can. If you see something in the newspaper, if it's a positive article that makes sense, share it on your social media. Let people know that polio is still out there and we still need to fight about it. We still need to make sure that we eradicate it. And then, of course, the World Polio Day and Immunization Week we need to talk about. Now, I often hear people say, well, we've been doing this a long time. There's donor fatigue. There's fatigue in general for our battle that we need to wage. But I know after this last year, traveling with President Stephanie around the world, that we are going to end polio. And the reason I know that is because I met the frontline workers, 90% of which are females who are mothers also. And you could see it in their eyes that they want to eradicate polio. I mean, we've had over 40 martyrs in the history since the early 80s when we started this, late 70s. So people are giving their lives for this. When you see them and you meet them, you feel their passion, we're going to eradicate polio. This gentleman here working in the lab, those people this is in the National Emergency Operations Center in Pakistan, and the people working there are so excited about the advancements they're making, where it used to take weeks to go in and actually try to locate where the source of an outbreak is. Now they can find that outbreak in a matter of days. And seeing the excitement of those people, I know that we will reach our goal of eradicating polio. And thank you very much for letting me share a few thoughts. And now we'll move over to Carolyn, who's going to actually inspire us.
Hey everyone, I'm delighted to be here tonight as both your Rotary Foundation advocate and fellow champion in this fight to end polio. We've all been doing it for a long time, but on every October 24th on World Polio Day, our Rotary family unites with one voice, one mission, and that is ending polio forever. It's a story of grit, compassion, and real measurable impact, and you're a crucial part of the next chapter. So it's not just a date, it's a global rally. And last year and many years before, clubs have hosted some very, very creative events, including T-Rex races and purple lit landmarks and that kind of thing. But I want to show you this little video to show you just a few things that you could do, just some ideas to create these impactful World Polio Days events. Now, had you ever really thought about doing pumpkins for polio? I really like that idea. as much as I like Pines for polio. But there's so many different things that can be done, and the inpolionow.org makes it extremely easy for you. There are a lot of resources there, including social media post examples, all the graphics you need, tons of videos, backgrounds, backdrops, all sorts of stuff. And you can also order hats and shirts from Rotary vendors, so you can have a unified appearance when you go and do these activities. Now, whether you're trying to reach 5 people or 500, there's a way for you to promote your World Polio Day, and you can utilize public image resources that we have on Zone 3334's website, as send out a press release, invite people from the news media, uh, do events and involve other Rotarians, not just your Rotary Club, but your zone, your district, your area, neighborhood clubs, and also invite people in the community to participate. When you bring up the 2-for-1 match by the Gates Foundation, people get happy to open their wallets. Um, Another thing that is a great thing to do is to have a speaker that's a polio survivor at your club or as a guest at an event. And even if you can find, now I know there are certain Rotary zones and areas that have, and districts that might just have an old iron lung sitting somewhere. And you might be able to borrow that, but it is expensive and hard to move. But you can do it. You can do it. So I know you've seen a lot of these things, and what I'd like to, and you may have some ideas already about what you might want to do, but I do want to challenge you tonight to come up with a couple of ideas and move forth with it. And I know you think, well, I'm a busy person. I've got a ton of stuff to do already, but you can delegate to other Rotarians. You can ask them for your help. And if you ask them in person to help you, they usually say yes. So with that, um, I think I'm done, and we're on to the Q&A portion of this program with Jeff Michaelman.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Oh,
And
yeah.
thank you, Nancy and Tom and Carolyn, with these great ideas leading into World Polio Day. But I got to tell you, getting all that, it's about having fun and fellowship with Rotarians to create opportunities for advocacy on polio. And I'm never going to stop thinking about Tom Gump with that hat that he had on to have fun raising money for polio. Nancy, let me start out with you. Could you tell us how we might be able to get access to the polio torch if we wanted to emulate some of your activities?
That's a great question, Jeff. I'm not sure if you could really use the real polio torch, but we do have a way to replicate that, and it looks just exactly like the real torch. So if you're interested in doing that, let me know. What a good friend of mine did in another district was to take a picture of that and then make it the same size as the torch. We rolled it up and it looks exactly like the torch. In fact, I took it on a trip and someone had asked me, "Oh, great, I want the torch." And they didn't have any idea that it wasn't the real thing. So getting access to the torch that we used might be a little bit difficult, but we can certainly help you get a substitute if you're so interested.
And kind of a follow-on question to that, Nancy, was what happens with the torch now that you've been using?
Well, we're still using the torch. It belongs to past director Robert Hall, and he said we can use it as much as we want. We will probably we're taking it to a zone event, and we will probably use it more at zone events and district events. Hopefully we can maybe share it around a little bit, but I've got to clear that with Robert. I'm sure he'll be fine with that, but we're keeping it and using it for zone events and district events mostly, Jeff.
Okay, so I think one takeaway that I would leave folks with is if they're interested in trying to find out follow-up information, get with their governor, and their governor can get with the polio coordinators in zones 33 and 34. Let me pivot a little bit. Tom Gump, you attended a lot of different polio events as the aide to President Stephanie last year. One of the questions that came up is, why do we have less national immunization days than we've had in the past?
Well, it's interesting because when we have success in places such as India, those national immunization days have moved to regional immunization days, and they still exist. And there's people like Nancy who are doing exploratory visionary trips. I think your next one's to Pakistan, Nancy, if I'm correct, to see what we can do as a next step. So they're out there, they're just harder to find. But if you can do one, I highly recommend it.
That sounds great. Tom, you gave us some bad news about the funding gap. Would you be able to share some good news? You talked about Saudi Arabia. What are some other things that we should be proud of?
You know, it's interesting because we have people like John Germ on the call who are doing a lot of um, careful advocacy with the right people to make sure that things are done. You know, we have to be careful because under the IRS tax code, the foundation's a 501c3, so we can't lobby. But that doesn't mean that behind the scenes, there's not a lot of good education being done with the right people at the right time. And I don't want anyone to get discouraged and think that because we're not taking out huge billboards saying do this or do this. And there's ways to lobby for spending under the healthcare bill and things like that that can be done. So a lot's being done behind the scenes, and I hope everyone goes back and lets people know that's happening.
Thanks, Tom. And I think everybody should use the resources that you have throughout our two districts or two zones to use your End Polio Now coordinators, because we get that positive information on a regular basis. Nancy, let me pivot a little bit. One of my favorite questions that's come up is, why is it important for clubs to set goals for polio giving? Why should they do this?
That's a great question, Jeff. You know, if you set a goal, you're more likely to reach it, right? So, and we have set a goal for every club to give at least $1,500 and raise that money for polio eradication. And of course, there again, it's matched. But if you don't set a goal, then you have nothing to aim for. So it's very important that you put that goal in Rotary Club Central and make sure that everyone in your club knows about it and that your district knows about it. Make your district governor and your DRFC very happy.
Thank you. That's great. I got a couple questions that came up. And I think this is trying to be addressed to Tom. Are you going to Zone 20 meeting in Brussels?
Possibly.
Okay. All right. So I guess that was addressed to you, Tom. This is another question, and I'm gonna let John Germ talk about this later. So, John, I'm gonna tell you the question that came up. What's going on in Gaza these days? And John, I think there's no one on this call more equipped to do that, so I'll let you address it later. Tom, one kind of question follow up, and I think you and Carolyn have already addressed it, but if you have any final thoughts, everybody's busy in their Rotary Club trying to do so much in their community and working on global grants. What are some low-hanging fruit ideas that you might suggest to energize people about polio?
You know, any kind of fundraiser that you've seen before, we can do it again. You know, it's so interesting. No matter where we go in the world, we went to Manchester, England, and they had a walk. Well, you know, walking in Manchester is beautiful, industrial. If you go to Hawaii at their district conference, they actually had a walk along the beach. You know, even a walk, anything like that, as simple as that, can actually get people energized. I've seen stuffed animals being sold where you pay $50 for an animal that gets donated to a children's hospital, but the money goes to polio. Um, it's just something that we got to keep up. We got to keep it in front of people, and we can't rest, and we just got to make it fun and exciting, like you said, Jeff. I mean, people join Rotary to have friends, let's have some friendship gathering where we raise money for polio at the same time.
Well, maybe we can replicate some of those hats, Tom, and we can auction them off.
I think that's a great idea.
Nancy, let me ask you the final question, and then we're going to move on to our special guest. Rotaractors have become one of the most important parts of the Rotary family in recent years. Do you have any thoughts on how we might be able to successfully engage Rotaractors in this fight to end polio?
Well, as some of the ideas that have popped up that Tom gave and Carolyn gave, Rotaractors like to be active and they like to do things and they like to take part in something. It's all about education. Why? Why should they get involved? It's all about awareness and helping the community understand them too. They don't understand about polio either. And a lot of other Rotarians don't as well. But I think engagement, I think engaging them and talking to them and getting them turned on about doing something fun, but also making it meaningful and impactful will make a huge difference. I know Rotaractors will take part in things if you give them an opportunity.
Thanks, Nancy. And Carolyn gave us lots of social media ideas. There's no better person to do social media than a Rotaractor.
That's right. And I'm gonna take this 1 minute that I'm not supposed to, but I'm gonna give a little shout out to tune into a podcast. I'm doing a podcast about polio, but also now other Rotary topics. And so I'll put the link in the chat. If you need a club program about polio, this is a good opportunity. So thanks for letting me give that little shout out.
Thanks, Nancy. It's a personal pleasure right now to introduce our next speaker, who has been at the forefront of polio fundraising, advocacy, education, and that's past Rotary International president, past Rotary International Foundation chairman, and currently the chair of the End Polio Now committee, John Germ.
Thank you very much, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be with you again. And let me congratulate you on a great Zone Institute last year. I think you call it a summit last year, which we had in Pittsburgh. And what better way to get awareness out there than to have a TV person sit there and be the MC for questions and answers things. So I think that was very good. Having Peter Salk there was great also. So it was a great event. And these are two great zones. And I really do appreciate, in spite of Robert Hall, the great work that you guys are doing. And he's on, or I wouldn't say that, but Robert does a fantastic job of coordinating the EPNCs. Some of the stuff that I'm going to cover probably has already been covered, but there's nothing wrong with covering things twice. But I want to talk about the good news and the bad news. The good news is that Rotary had a vision. That vision was in 1979, thinking that we could eradicate polio from the face of the earth, and funded the initial pilot program in the Philippines to provide vaccines and to vaccinate 6 million children. It was successful. So successful that Rotary said, well, why don't we go to the World Health Assembly and see if we can get them to endorse this as a worldwide program. To our Rotarians, the World Health Assembly said no. But Rotary don't know the word no. That's not a good word. So we went back and said, we'll raise the money. How much is it going to cost? It's going to cost $120 million. So while we had that vision and we moved on into 2000 and having another fundraise, we said we were going to do it. Bad news, we haven't done it. We've still got a long way to go. Now we keep saying we're either this short or we're 99.9%. It's that last 1% we got to get to. And right now, the number of cases, the good news is the number of cases is lower if you count the vaccine-derived cases and the wild poliovirus cases. It's lower than it's ever been in the history of the world. Lower than it's ever been in the history of the world. Now, we can't do that by ourselves. It's been talked about here how we need other people involved and we need to get more districts involved. Involved. Is that But we got great partners: WHO, UNICEF, CDC, the Gates Foundation, and the latest one is Gavi, the vaccine immunization. And we'll need them as we convert over to the live inoculation type that many of us have had. There was a mention about advocacy, and Tom brought up about working behind the scenes, and we do have an advocacy group for the United States government, and we meet in Washington. We go talk to these individuals, the congressmen and the senators and stuff, and we do have the $85 million has been agreed to, the $185 million, $180 million that would go to the CDC for their program. The House has passed that bill that includes that. The president's budget did not include it, but the House has passed it, and it's up to the Senate now. And hopefully, we're going to end up getting that because we're working very hard on getting that. Now, that money doesn't come to Rotary. That money goes to CDC and it goes to other agencies. But it would, if it wasn't for Rotary, I think the CDC would tell you that they didn't get that, and yet they're the ones that's doing all the testing and everything. So it goes to the program, but does not count against that. The bad news is, Tom mentioned it, how short we were. Well, Tom, you're short. It's $1 million a year. I mean, I'm sorry, $1 billion a year that we have to have. So we've got to increase the Rotarian participation. Now, the good news is we do have this new partnership that goes through 29 with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that if we do our $50 million, then they will, in January, by June the 30th, then they'll give us $100 million in January. Now, the good thing about this partnership is that becomes Rotary's money. And it's Rotary's IPPC committee, with a budget committee, that then makes recommendations to the IPPC. IPPC makes recommendations to the trustees, and then the trustees and the board get together and they vote on that. So it's all Rotary's money. Now, the Gates Foundation attends our IPPC meetings. They do not tell us how to do it. The budgets are set by countries. And right now we've got a new committee that I'm going to be chairing to talk about outbreaks, because outbreaks right now we don't think is going to get through until 2030. So, but we've got to increase our club participation. You know, zones 33 and 34 and do fantastic work. Zone 33, you got 15 out of the 17 districts that do 20%. How do they do that? They just say you need to do it. Somebody will tell you that, oh no, we're going to use it all for humanitarian grants. Well, that's all well and good. But what is the greatest humanitarian grant work that Rotary's involved in? It's the eradication of polio. It affects everybody. So we got to say to that one district, or two districts that didn't give the 20%, hey, give something. And they all did. 17 out of 17 districts gave something to that. So the two districts, we just got to talk to them a little bit and explain it to them, as they say, what is happening. The total DDF transferred from zone 33 was $667,138. Fantastic. Bad news, only 79.5% of the clubs participated. 79.5. Now, what does that tell us? That tells us we're not doing a good job of educating our newest members as to why it's important that we eradicate polio. Many of the people coming into Rotary right now, especially for Rotary actors, they've never heard of polio. They may have heard of polo for polo shirts, but they hadn't heard of polio. So we've got to get that word out to these new members as part of our new member orientation, or whatever it takes to get that done. I was so disappointed in Rotary this year, and we've had some concerns in Rotary, some problems that came up that was unexpected. But you realize that the July and the August issue of the Rotarian had zero zero in there about polio eradication. And I talked to staff and they say, well, we had the situation with the president. Well, that's fine. You could have had a page cut before that and still had it in the magazine. Those things are done 4 months in advance. No reason for that. How do you expect Rotarians to respond if they don't get the information that they need to respond to? So it's really good there. Your cash was 1.8 million. District 34, 12 out of 13 districts gave 20%. All 13 gave something. 441,000, 74%. So we're always hovering around that. Nationwide last year, or worldwide last year, we got 5,599 clubs that gave any money to the Raise Polio campaign. Tom, I think we got about 17,000 clubs right now. 30-something thousand clubs.
37,000.
37,000. And we only got 5,600 that gave anything, gave any money. That's $1 or anything. What's our education program? We've got to improve our education and the indoctrination. We had a total of 185 districts that gave 20%, and then we had 150 more districts that gave anything to the polio campaign. We don't have enough zones like zones 33 and 34. And I will put zones 30 and 31 up there because they have to be our zones. I'll put those up there too. But let me tell you some ideas that we've talked a lot about. We talked about the torch run. Let me tell you that this bicycle ride has been going on in Tucson for many years. There's a fundraiser lady by the name of Rebecca Wilkes. She's going to ride this year on November the 22nd in the El Tour de Tucson. She will be matching. Now, this is an individual Rotarian that is going to match 2-to-1 up to $50,000. So, and that's going through that Race for Rotary campaign, Nancy. So it's similar to what you're doing with the torch and everything. Those are tools that are available that we need to be using. Now, if she can get contributions from anywhere in Rotary on Race for Rotary for $50,000, she's going to give us $100,000. Now, guess what? We're going to match that with the Gates Foundation. So look at what that does, and that's just an idea. Our district came up with a thing called Purple Pinky Donuts. Went to Dunkin' Donut. They make an eclair-looking donut that has got purple icing on the end of it. They we buy those things for $25 and take them to schools, take them to firemen, policemen, hospitals, and so forth. The district then matches that dollar for dollar out of our DDF. Guess what? The World Fund matches that DDF too, don't they? Then guess what? Gates matches all of that combined. Those are the things, and that's now spread across 6 different districts in Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama, and Kentucky. So those are things that you can do that I think that they're very possible. The plane ride around the world last year was very successful. They're going to do it again this year, except they're just going to do it across in the east area. Walk, runs. Jeff Cataract, if y'all remember, a few years ago, jumped out of an airplane. Whatever the crazy ideas are, we can do it. And you've already talked about the PolioPlus Society. Let me tell you about the PolioPlus Society. You're all familiar with Paul Harris Society. That started from one idea, from one guy on the West Coast. Rotary didn't want to have anything to do with it. Too much record keeping, too much of this, too much of that. So they did it by the district level. We started the PolioPlus Society a few years ago. Guess what? No, that's too much work. We don't have a way to track it all. Well, guess what? The districts did it. And we finally have convinced the TRF and RI that they're going to take it over. It is supposed to be July of next year. So that will become a program. And it always takes that kind of stuff to make it happen. Advocacy, you've talked a little bit. Pittsburgh, again, was a fantastic thing with encouraging that we've got to continue and not get discouraged. And Tom's absolutely right. There's been a lot of people saying, why are you still doing this? I'm tired. I had one guy tell me, I never want to hear another word about polio. And I said, well, don't come to any meetings I'm going to be at. They'll solve that problem because we're going to talk about it. Chinese have a proverb that says, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one single step. We started this journey in 1979, and I don't think Rotary should renege on its promises to the children of the world to eradicate polio. And I don't think that each of us should ever give up until we can say we conquered polio. And we can do it. It just takes each one of us to make that total commitment. And, you know, a lot of football games have been won or lost in the fourth quarter. A lot of baseball games this year being won or lost in the last inning or two. Let's don't lose this game. Let's keep playing and let's finish the race. And I thank you for the opportunity. And I could talk another 20 minutes, but I won't. Thanks.
Thank you so much, John, for your comments. Thank you for being so candid with the good things going on, the things that are challenging, and challenging all of us to do a better job at fundraising in our clubs and in our districts. I want to thank all of our speakers. We had some excellent ideas and some really inspiring messages shared today. I also want to thank the End Polio Now team, the regional team who's on this call and has done a tremendous amount of work towards this, and each of the teams in the districts and in the clubs that are present as well. We really appreciate the work that you do and are encouraged by your successes. Remember that you have many resources about the Rotary Foundation, both online and the individuals in your districts and zones. So please feel free to contact folks as you have questions.
Hey,
Did
Sandra,
record. Yes.
I want to add one other one that is very easy to do, that every one of
Okay.
us has friends that die. You can make a memorial contribution to that person versus sending them flowers or something that way they have a meaningful contribution going to them for a memorial.
Thank you. That's actually a really good suggestion. We've also done it for people on their birthday and other events that happen throughout the year. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you. We did record this webinar and it will be posted on the RI Zones 3334 website under the Foundation Matters section. And also check out the new video clips that are being offered this year. These are short segments drawn from the webinar that are good to include in your meetings to enhance discussion on foundation topics. And specifically, this one will be about polio. Please mark your calendar for our next webinar on September 18th at 6 p.m. And next month, we will be discussing how to educate new members and engage them in the Rotary Foundation. And I think we talked about doing that for polio. We need to do that for all of the foundation as well. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you to everyone who was participating in this webinar. It was a very successful one, and thanks for those of you that stuck with us a little bit longer than usual. This does conclude our webinar, and I hope you have a nice evening. Thank you.